I've got a notebook here and I'm fairly certain that it works. So I figured it would be good to record going back and adding some comment to this. And the overall goal of this notebook is to look at ARIA, accessible rich internet applications. Let's see, let's just do it right once, because I think by standard's sake you only have to do this once. I mean, we should know at this point, accessible rich internet applications. Great. Okay. So, like I said, I wanted to do this in a way that I understand it. So what that means is I'm going to work with it as data. I'm going to work with it as Python code. I'm going to work with it as paper and calligraphy, and then publish this notebook with all those things included. So the first thing that we do is we use rdflib to load in the ARIA data. So if I go to here, I think it's just, this is a file that is published by the W3C, and it has the structural relationships between all of the ARIA roles. They don't live independently. They're actually structured as a hierarchical graph. So that's why I think it may help to consider them as data. And when I can grasp them in a way that I'm familiar with, I feel a little bit more empowered afterwards. So we're going to use rdflib. And now I understand if you're watching this, some of the concepts might appear foreign to you while they're familiar to me, because I am working in my most fluent languages, which is what works for me in this place. So then I'm going to go look at, I'm going to use network X and matplotlib to visualize the data, the ARIA hierarchy, role hierarchy. And then I'm going to create Python data class analogs of the ARIA roles. So in doing this, we'll look at it from a few different angles, and maybe those different angles will give us a more general sort of perspective. So we'll load in a bunch of stuff here, and this is where we, okay, so load in the graph, and the graph looks like this. So it is a triple, a subject, a predicate, and an object. Text box is a subclass of input. Great, and we're going to extract those relationships and reuse them. The first thing we're going to do, though, is kind of get a visual grasp on the relationships here. So we go and create a network X graph. We also create a data frame of the edges here. I'm most fluent in data frames. It's just easiest to work with. Maybe it's overkill, whatever. And then we go and add those edges to the network X graph. And then we create a graph viz layout. There's a reversal here. I don't know why I did that. And then we draw the graph. So what's that look like? It goes and it looks like this. So if we go and we look at our edges, actually, yeah, I would like to actually know how many there are. So how many subjects? Okay, so there's the graph, and we're going to ask for how many subjects are there where there is a RDF type of owl class. And then that should give us a list, and let's count that. Okay, So there's 81. So this this network plot here shows 81 of these. Let's redo it. Let's print it like we're not completely irreverent that there are standards. Print it. I don't know why I knew it was that number. At least this one's taking a little bit of time. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Yeah. Now that we have this, we'll be able to see it and feel it a little bit better. Very cool. So now what we see is there's some sort of natural clusterings here that we'll be able to investigate a little bit further as we get deeper into the notebook here. So this is where I don't see much difference necessarily between the two ideas of a computer notebook and a printed notebook. I think you should be able to print them both out and use them just the same, or actually cooperatively. Nevertheless, each time I see this, I start to understand it more and more and more. So the idea is really that you can't design an accessible digital thing outside of this space. You might put stuff together, you might make composites, but nevertheless, you're sort of bound by the semantics of these roles, which is why it's important to understand and reconsider the ARIA roles in a few different facets and capacities. So here we're actually going to create pandas data frame that will create the classes. So we go and we grab all the classes, we grab their subclasses, we grab their supported states. So I'll show what these look like at the end. Actually, let's go and do that right now. So what is, let's make the data frame, right? So the supported state is what we call the properties here. Let's explode those and then drop the duplicates. And what we are talking about here, partition is ARIA dash, okay. These are all of the ARIA properties that you can apply in the HTML vocabulary. You can't add to this. Like, you can add to HTML and make new web components. You can't change this. And each of these properties applies to specific roles. Like, you can't use them otherwise. So that's why if we represent them as a class, we can start to, as a class with the data frame as an intermediate, we can start to get a feel for this a little bit better in an idiomatic and Pythonic sort of way. So what I just did was we've got, let's see. Okay, so this is the, ARIA is the base class for all of the ARIA, all of the Python classes we make. So we only put this on the base classes. And I think I don't know where we'll get to where that happens. And okay, so this is kind of using like a caching technique off of classes. So if the role's already defined, let's get out of there. Skedaddle if the role is already defined. Initialize the defaults for subclasses and properties if they weren't provided. Build the properties that we want to pass to our new Python ARIA type. Accumulate the properties and their values, period. We have to define the default property value and the annotation type. Reverse the subclasses so Python can build the types properly, semicolon. Otherwise, we get a module resolution error, period. The most abstract base classes will not have a subclass, period. This is where we use our ARIA class to track all of those we build. Create the type as a data class using the role as the class name, comma, and attach it to the ARIA class and classes cache. Iterate through the data frame rows and build all of the classes, period. Afterwards, we know all the possible ARIA names and we attach them to a closed namespace. That we can use to talk about the objects. Sweet. Okay. Let's see. What do we mess up here? Probably messed up something. Get class. Of course we did. Where is the get class guy? I figured one of those was going to get borked. So this is that, and it's saying that get type does not support object assignment. Oh, okay. What did we goof up? This is fine. That's allowed. That's allowed. That's allowed. That's not allowed. That's why. Okay. Great. Beautiful. Nice. That's what our code looks like marked up in like a literate programming language. It's very pretty. So what do we got here? So if I go to ARIA, ARIA is a type. If I dig into it a little bit more, it is this. This is great. So it's a Python object, and it encodes the ARIA hierarchy. So at the base, the ARIA abstract classes are structure, window, widget, none, and role type. Okay, so let's go and look at role type first. I should have put the cache just on the ARIA class. I don't know why I didn't. Now, so what this is showing is this is ARIA role type as a Python class. So you'd never instantiate this. And I didn't put this on all the other classes because it became hard to reason with. But basically what this is saying is these are all of the default ARIA properties that would be allowed to be associated with a role with anything with a role type. So anything with a role. I don't know if none has a role type role, actually. I could probably ask, but I want to stay focused right now. It's an interesting question. When I look back at this, maybe I can hit it again. But what's cool, what I like to note here is that controls described by error message, labeled by owns, and I think that's all, maybe even relevant. I'm not sure. All of those hold IDs. So they're actually like really, they're live coding objects and give like programming affordances to them. So, but nevertheless, if we were to say, let's go a little further and let's say we want to look at the ARIA structure role. Okay, so now its subclasses are section, application, section head, presentation, separator. What if we went to just jump to landmark? Now, again, I'm inspecting these objects as if they're code objects. And now the ARIA landmark class is telling me that banner, complementary, content info, form, main, and navigation, region, and search are all the subclasses of a landmark, and every landmark will have an expanded. So if I, I'm kind of happy about this. Let's see, where will we go? Let's go down to widget and see if we can understand this a little bit better. So in ARIA, a widget is our most base class. So an input is a widget. And the things that are inputs are checkbox, radio, option, text box, slider, and spin button. So all of these would be the input tag with a different type associated with them. We never really invoke these roles. We just do it with the type object. So that's why it's important to know the types of things here. So let's go to text box and look at that. Now text box notes that it has active descendant, which I think is an ID ref, autocomplete, multi-line, placeholder, read-only, and required. And then we also have a few comments here. So it links us over to the HTML standard, and we can take a look at the attributes here. So basically, we would just use these attributes instead, but when they're interpreted by the document object model and the accessibility object model, they ultimately become ARIA properties, and that's what gets sent to the assistive technology. It's not directly through the HTML, but by defining these things, we get if we define these things as HTML asks us to, then we get UI associated with an accessibility tree. So rarely are we going to touch these things. However, it is good to know if we're working with the type system, because there's a lot of different variants in HTML, but the ARIA really provides like the type system for how things can be perceived. And it's finite. And it gets expanded upon when we start adding the perceivable, the visual, and the user interface to it. So we have a nice, useful little tool here. Let's take a look at this. Let's see. We can now do stuff like is subclass ARIA text box ARIA structure. Okay. False. Is it a widget? Yeah. Input? Yeah. Cool. So we might not ever invoke these things, but, and we typically don't. And that's kind of like, I think that's the second rule of ARIA is just like, don't use ARIA. However, knowing the type system will contain your hubris when thinking there's a lot of different things, when it's actually just a lot of combinations of all of these roles that we have here. Done. Good. We got to the end. We saw ARIA in RDF, in pandas, rdflib, pandas, and then just pure Python data classes. Now, none of this is necessarily moving us towards better a code base or anything. But what it is showing is how we can play with these components and reconfigure them and rearrange them. And in doing so, we'll reinforce what we know about the topic. So let's give this a notebook. What day is today? I haven't written notebooks in a really long time. That kind of makes me sad, but at the same time too, I was doing it for escapism for a really long time. So, ARIA, that's great. Stop there.